I've been going nowhere lately. It's time to start all over and go for it. What can I do when a million things are running through? Million things I can't undo. I just sleepwalk, I just sleep talk. That's all I got.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video, another episode of the Let's Get Crystal Clear podcast. I know it has been a while since I've uploaded an episode here, but this one has kind of been like heavy on my heart for the last couple of days. I wanted to discuss this tragic and extremely sad accident that happened out in LA. A woman drove her vehicle at about 90 miles per hour into a intersection. And I know a lot of you guys who clicked on this, you're aware of what's going on. It's probably something that you've been following, you're curious about. I'm definitely trying to make sense of this whole thing and what might have been playing out in this woman's head. We haven't really got any type of facts other than this woman has a history of mental health problems and a lot of lives were lost in this accident. One of the recurring motives that I've been reading across the internet or hearing about just in conversation with friends and family is that the woman who was driving the vehicle at a high speed, her name is Nicole Linton. It's alleged that she was in an argument with her boyfriend. And it was also alleged that she was drunk driving, but I think the toxicology report came back saying that she didn't have any drugs or alcohol in her system. As time has passed and new details have emerged, they're starting to dig deep into this woman's history. She's had, I think it was 13 crashes on her record, which is a lot. Her vehicle struck another vehicle, basically T-boning them. And because of the speed she was going, that car burst into flames. I think multiple cars might have burst into flames, but one of the vehicles had an entire family in it. There was a pregnant woman, the father of her child, and then she also had her other child in the back seat. All of them lost their lives. There were two more women, I believe, who haven't been identified yet, who also lost their lives. There are multiple people who were injured, and there are now thousands, if not millions of people who are now traumatized by just having watched that footage, and the people who were there to witness the accident being traumatized in many ways. I'm 100% sure that a lot of those people who were there are now too afraid to drive. A lot of us who watched the footage were probably extra cautious now. I feel on edge now when I drive. And so this one woman's actions has impacted so many lives. And I think that when we see these type of things happen, it's important that we don't just sit on the sidelines and sort of spectate or just sit back and watch what happens. Because the thing about life is that each and every one of us are humans here on earth, just trying to live out the human experience, trying to find happiness, to learn and to grow. The things that we witness in life and the things that we are made aware of, there's a lesson in that for us to take away. And for me personally, that lesson has been to continuously work on my own emotional intelligence. And what does that mean exactly? Your emotional intelligence affects so much. It affects your day-to-day life. It affects your relationships. It's all rooted in how you understand the things that you experience, how they affect you, how you respond to them, not just the things you experience, but the people as well, the people in your life. I've been in several arguments with exes in my past where tension started to get really high and we would scream and shout. Someone would leave angry or get in the car angry. And there's a lot that I look back on where I feel I could have handled things better. And I'm not saying that I've done things that have put people's lives at risk, but I can recall times in my life where I reacted in a situation in a way that I wasn't proud of later. And you tend to learn from your mistakes. And as I have taken a lot of time out in my life to just reflect on my own choices and my own behaviors and the outcome of those choices and behaviors, I've really zoned in on trying to improve my emotional intelligence. And I think that that is something that is not discussed enough. I have two young nieces who they are at that age where they kind of bicker a lot with each other, and they're sisters. So it's normal, it's natural. But I always try to reiterate to them that, like, no matter what, you are responsible for your actions. You are responsible for how you respond to how your sister's treating you. Whatever your reaction is, if that's to hit her, if that's to yell at her, you can't blame that on your sister for making you do that, right? Like, no one can make you do something. You're responsible for your actions. It's your body. It's your mind that's controlling the body. And so I try to instill that in them at this young age, because having lived 34 years of my own life, I've reaped the consequences of a lot of my actions that I'm not proud of, and that have caused a lot of pain and suffering for me in a lot of ways. And so the general message as witnesses to this whole story unfolding, this tragedy unfolding, is that we all have to understand that we're responsible for how we move in this world. And we have to understand that our movement, our decisions affect other people in a lot of ways, in ways we can't see. Like, even how you carry yourself in public, like, you never know who's watching, who's observing you, who takes note of you. And so if you go out and you carry yourself in a negative way, if you're yelling and you're screaming about something, like in a public setting, I'm just using this as an example. There may be a little kid watching you, and it's telling them that it's okay to be this way, to react this way, when in reality it's not, right? But you're not aware that there was a little kid who observed that, and it registered in their brain that it's okay to act this way. Or maybe you're someone who you're very mindful of how you carry yourself in public, and people take notice of that. Maybe you're someone who likes to keep a smile on your face. You like to compliment other people when you're out. That compliment that you give somebody can change the trajectory of their day, of their week, of their month. You never know how your actions impact other people. And I don't know, it's just really unfortunate. Like, I keep replaying that video, and I know I shouldn't, but it's just crazy how just in the blink of an eye, like, things can change that quickly. And so I don't know, I always just like to try and find like lessons in everything that I experience, especially those things that sort of sit with me. Like, I feel like a lot of times things are happening all around us, right? And so many stories, especially on social media, like, we're constantly seeing different things. Things are being shared to us, different videos, reels, TikToks, whatever. And a lot of this information we're just like consuming, and we're on to the next thing, and everything is just happening so quickly. But every once in a while, there's that story that just hits you when it sits with you. And for some people, maybe this story about this tragic accident didn't affect them. People hear about it and they just go on about their lives. Or maybe it really touched you. But I say all that to say that there's always something that sits with us that we're just an observer of, right? It's not something that we actively experienced, but we're just observing. And I think it's important that, especially for my spiritual people, that when you do have those observations that sit with you, you really try to dig deep and understand, like, okay, why was I a witness to this? Why is this resonating with me? Why is this hitting me here in this space? Right? And you dig deep to uncover that, because that means that there was a lesson in that for you. And I think too, that's a way that the lives of these people can be honored. These victims, these humans who lost their lives, like, let's make sure that collectively we do our part to not just sit back and let this be another thing that just happens, but we actually take their experience, right? Take this tragedy, and we try to find ways in our own lives that we can be better people. We can be more self-aware, more emotionally intelligent. We can be more compassionate. Dig deep and find that and try to apply it to your life. I hope that that's making sense. I hope that I'm not confusing anyone, but Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds. I feel like we're all just sort of waiting for some clarity on why. We may never get that. They're now coming out with like crazy ties saying like this woman was like engaged to someone. I don't know if the person was related to Usain Bolt or competed with Usain Bolt in the Olympics, but now like poor Usain Bolt's name has now been thrown into the mix. And so the media can just really get like out of control with certain things. Like we really have no idea what was going through this woman's head until we actually witness her testimony, if we ever get that. I think just in the grand scheme of making sure that we are on top of our own mental health, that we are showing compassion towards others, taking responsibility for our actions, showing care to our community, to our families, to our friends, just being aware and understanding that we're all just here trying to enjoy this experience of life. I don't know. I hope I got my message across. I hope I'm not confusing you guys at all, but I just wanted to come on here and say that because the situation is really unfortunate. And while it hasn't been confirmed that that was the reason for Nicole Linton's speeding, the fact that she was doing 90 miles an hour and it, from what I could see in the video, it didn't look like she was trying to brake. It can be assumed that she was trying to end her life because they're now focusing on her history of mental health issues and her history of 13 crashes. It's just really odd. Initially, I was thinking like, man, this woman was a ICU nurse, right? And when I think of nurses, I just think like they have to have a level of empathy and compassion, right? To do that job. So you would think that she would know better than to react that way. But that's an assumption. And the fact is that nurses they're also human. They're also people who go through ups and downs. And this woman was down that day. And whatever it is she was going through, she couldn't control herself in that moment. She couldn't step out of what her body was experiencing, the speeding, the anger towards whatever, if that's actually what happened, like the anger towards her boyfriend. She couldn't mentally pull herself out of that moment and say, okay, Nicole, girl, like this is crazy what you're doing right now. Think of the consequences. And I know just from my own experience, like sometimes in those moments when you're really upset, when you're really pissed off, it can be difficult to pull yourself out of those moments. But the thing is that, like I said, there are consequences. And when you become aware of that, when you understand that, you show more compassion towards yourself, at least for me. Like, I'm not going to lie, y'all. Like, I've had a lot of arguments in my previous relationships where I would just yell and scream or just like say negative things to that person, say hurtful things. And I'm not proud of that. And it was really difficult for me in those moments to control myself. But I had to reflect on that, right? Like coming out of those situations, I couldn't ignore that guilt that I felt. I had to sit with that and try to make sense of it and understand, okay, why do I feel guilty? I feel guilty because I reacted that way, because I said X, Y, and Z. Well, why did I say X, Y, and Z? What got me to that point? Because if I'm responsible for how I act, for the things I say, the things that come out of my mouth, if I'm solely responsible for that, what was it in me that I couldn't have under control in order to reel that back in? Right. And so when I started to have those conversations with myself, and not only that, but remove myself from whatever was causing my frustration levels to go up, that was when I was able to see things clearly. And I think that that's another thing we have to understand is like sometimes in disagreements with other people, you're not always going to reach a conclusion in that moment. You have to step away. You have to know when to step away. You have to have the mental and emotional strength to say, okay, this is not healthy. When you're able to think on that level and control yourself in those moments, I feel like that's when you've really leveled up your emotional intelligence. When you don't allow external factors to control how you react and how you present yourself to the world. Like, you get clear on who it is you want to be, who you are, your morals, your values. When you understand those things, it makes it more difficult for anything to come in and break you out of character, right? Break you out of that sort of mold you've built for yourself. I feel like there's so much more I want to say, but I don't want to draw this podcast or this video out longer than it has to be. So, yeah. My heart goes out to the families of the victims. My heart goes out to the people who have witnessed what happened, the people who were there in real life to see that, to experience that, because I know that trauma is going to stay with a lot of people for a very long time. But every day we wake up is a blessing, and it's all the more reason to just go out here and try to find just an ounce of happiness, try to spread an ounce of happiness to other people. I'm wishing everyone brighter days ahead. Thank y'all for listening, for watching. Till next time, take care.
Baby, I've been going nowhere lately. It's time to start